In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a swipeable view like you see here. So I'm swiping through different product variations of the same product. These are different colored hats and I can just swipe through them and the view completely changes. This is going to be good if you're building an app that displays products and you need to display different variations of that product. Instagram also uses this if you post multiple images or multiple videos. The users are able to swipe through them just like you see here. What's happening is I'm using fragments and a ViewPager. So these are new individual fragments getting inserted into a ViewPager, which I can then swipe through. Down at the bottom is a tab layout. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to create an empty activity. Go to next. I'm going to call this swipe ViewPager. And all of the rest of the settings are fine. I'm going to go to finish. And Android Studio is going to build that project for me. First, I'm going to get all the dependencies that we need for this project. So I'm going to go into our build.gradle app file, and I'm going to copy in the dependencies that I have. Because I've obviously built this ahead of time, I'm just going to copy these in. I'm going to be using the support design library since we're going to be using tabs, and also the glide library for displaying images. You can get the dependency for the glide library if you just open up a new browser window. Let me just get one right here. I'll just show you really quick. I expect most of you know how to use glide, but you just type glide Android in Google, and it's going to be this first result right here, and you scroll down and grab the dependencies that are right here. So that's all I've done. I've just pasted them in from a finished version of the project instead of getting them from GitHub. All right, so the first step is going to be modeling the data. So what do I have displaying here? I'm displaying a hat. So what does it mean to be a hat object? Well, I need an image, I need a title, I need a price, and because it's a product, it's good to have something like a serial number. If you're building an actual application, chances are this product is going to have a serial number. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a new class to model that data. So I'm going to right click on the main package directory, go to new package. I'm going to call it the models package. And then inside the models package, I'm going to create a hat object. So HAT for hat. Now, what does it mean to be a hat? Well, like I said, it needs a title. It needs, private integer. It's an image, needs an image. That needs to be a string. It needs a price. I'm going to be using a big decimal object as the price. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. And then a serial number. You don't need to include the serial number. We don't actually use it in this tutorial at all. But chances are if you're building a product, any kind of an app that uses products, you're going to have a serial number. So it's going to be a good idea to include that. So why did I use a big decimal number for the price? Really, it comes down to precision. Big decimal seems to be the most precise way to display a certain amount of precision or a certain amount of decimals using Java. I personally just prefer to use big decimal for price. You definitely don't want to use something like an integer, obviously because there's no decimals. Okay, carrying on here, I'm going to insert the default constructor. So I'm pressing Alt Enter, going to constructor. I'm going to select all of those fields and insert the constructor. Next, I'm going to insert an empty constructor. So I'm unselecting all of those, clicking OK. And the last thing I want to do is insert the getter and setter methods. So I'm going to highlight all those and insert those. If you don't know what I did, I pressed Alt Insert and it gives me this menu that becomes available. I can insert the constructor, the getters, the setters, all that stuff. So that's where I'm getting all of those methods. I forgot to talk about something before I move on. Now, you're probably wondering why I used an integer as the image. It's because in this project, I'm going to be inserting drawable resources for the images instead of getting them from URLs from the internet. So I'm going to be inserting drawables into here. That's going to be these images that you see being displayed here. And since I just talked about the drawables, I might as well get the drawables. So if you go to I wrote a blog post actually on this video that I'm making right now if you prefer to read. If you just go to this URL, blog.swipingviews with a ViewPager, it'll take you to that blog post that I write. If you scroll down to the drawable resources heading right here, you can see this is a button that takes you to where you can download all of those drawable resources that I just mentioned. So these are all the drawables that I'm going to be using in this example. If you want to finish this example, you're going to need to click on all of these and download them all individually. So this one's actually a vector asset, so you can just copy this and add this to the project. So I see attach money black 24dp. So I'm going to create a new drawable resource. I see attach money 24, it was black 24dp. and I'm going to just paste that in. There's our vector asset for that $sign that you see in the corner right down here. Now I'm going to go back to the GitHub page, and you're going to need to download all of these other assets. So like this image right here, you'll need to click on it, go to download, and then drag it into your Drawables file. So I'll just give you an example of how to do that. So what I have in front of me is the drawable directory for this project. You can see it's in Android Studio Projects, Swipe ViewPager, App, Source, Main, Res, Drawable. Now I have another window open over here, which is all of the assets, the drawable assets that I needed, all the ones that I downloaded from that GitHub page. So I'm just going to copy all of these, and I'm going to paste them into here, replace those two files. Now I have all the drawables for the project. If I minimize this now and I go into my drawables file, notice that all of them are in here. So there is one of the images. I also have this tab indicator default, tab indicator selected, and tab selector. So these are drawable files for the little dots down here. So one of them is for a gray dot, which is the one that's unselected, and one of them is for a blue dot, which indicates which one is selected in the tab layout. If you're confused about that, don't worry about it. I'm going to be explaining it later on when we actually set up the ViewPager and the tabs. Just going to close some of these. Okay, so we have our hats, we have our hat objects, we have our drawable resources. Now what I want to do is set up the class that's responsible for building those hat objects for displaying in our ViewPager. So I'm going to create a new package on the main package directory. I'm going to call it resources. And inside resources, I'm going to put a new Java class. It's going to be called hats. Now this class is going to be responsible for actually holding the raw data that's being displayed. Because remember, we have hat objects being displayed here, but what hat objects are we displaying? So this is going to be the class that specifies the specifics of each individual hat object. And since this is just a static resource class, I suggest you go to my GitHub page for this project. There's going to be a link in the description of this video, and get that resource. It's better than having to type it out because it's just a static class anyway. Alternatively, you could go to the blog post that I mentioned, which is found at this URL, and you can go to the modeling the data section, scroll down, and if you scroll down, actually you want to go to the resource class section. This is the hats class right here. So you can just literally copy this whole thing, copy up to there, go back to Android Studio, and I can paste that in right there. So it's going to give me a bunch of warnings, so I need to import the classes. So I'm just clicking Alt Enter, and I'm importing everything that I need. So what is this class? So we have a static method that's called getHats, and what it does is it returns the snapbacks hat array. The snapbacks hat array just contains an array of different hat objects. So we have snapback navy for this navy colored one, we have snapback black for this black colored one, and so on. It's just different colors, and they all have different titles, and they have a different drawable resource that's associated with it. So you have the title, you have the drawable resource, you have the price, which is a big decimal object, and then you have a serial number. So all these hats have different titles, different drawable resources. The price is actually the same, but they could be different, and they have different serial numbers. So it's just a resource class for the objects that we're going to be displaying in this ViewPager. All right, so now I'm finally going to get started setting up that ViewPager. So the first step in this is going to be building the fragment class for each individual fragment. So remember, these are fragments. Each one of these items in the ViewPager is a fragment. They're fragments with different hat objects set to them. So if we're using fragments, we need an individual layout for those fragments. So I'm going to create a new layout file by right-clicking on the layout folder, going to layout resource file, and I'm going to call this fragment ViewPager item. Now this layout is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to first of all change this to a relative layout. I'm changing it to a relative layout because relative layouts make it very simple to center different widgets in the view. The first widget is an image view. That's going to be match parent and match parent for the height. Looks like I made a mistake there. And I'm going to give it an ID of image. I'm going to set a scale type of center inside, which is going to center the image inside of the view. And I want to set it above it's going to be above another layout, which I'm going to call Lin layout, which I haven't made yet. So that's going to give me a warning for now, but I'm going to make that layout right now. So I'm going to create a linear layout now. This one's going to be match parent and then wrap content for the height, because I don't want it to occupy the entire view. I only want it to wrap around whatever content is inside of it. I'm going to give it an orientation of vertical, because it's going to orient the widgets inside of it vertically. An ID of Lin layout, like I mentioned above. And let's see, align parent to the bottom, set that to true. See, because I'm using a relative layout, I'm allowed to use this attribute align parent bottom, which aligns the linear layout to the bottom of the view. And I'm going to give it a margin top of 10 dp, which is going to bring it just a little bit away from whatever is above it, which is this image view. Next is inside of this linear layout. First, I'm going to add a text view, which is wrap content and wrap content, because it's just going to wrap around whatever text is inside of the text view. I'm going to give a text size of 15 sp for the size of the text, obviously. The text color is going to be black. The hex code for black is 000. An ID of title. Margin, going to give it some margin start, which is margin on the left hand side of 10 dp, just to kind of bring it away from this edge right here. So it's bringing it to the right a little bit by 10 dp. And I'm going to put some dummy text in here for blue snapback, just so we can see kind of what it looks like. If I zoom in, you can see that text down in the corner. Now I'm going to add one more text view. This text view is actually going to be, it's going to have two purposes. One is going to be displaying that $sign that we inserted at the beginning of the video. So drawable start. I'm going to add the attach money drawable, so you can see that $sign popping up there. But it's also going to contain some text. So I'm going to give it some text that says some price, so $25.99. It's going to have a text size of 16 sp. Text color of black once again, so hex code for black is 000. And I'm going to give it an ID of price. So there is our view. So the image view will occupy the entire view. We have the title, and then we have the price. So that's the layout for the individual fragments that will be in the ViewPager. Next is going to be activity main. So this is the main layout. This one needs to contain the ViewPager for inserting those individual fragments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this constraint layout to a linear layout, because this is going to be a very simple layout. The only thing that's going to be in here, let's give this an orientation of vertical. The only thing that's going to be in here is the ViewPager and the tab layout that sits below the ViewPager. So if we look at the view, we have the ViewPager that's holding the fragments, and then below the ViewPager is this little tab layout down here. So pretty standard, pretty straightforward layout. So I'm going to add the ViewPager first of all, which is going to get a width of match parent. And I'm actually going to use a weight sum, so I'm going to give it a height of 0 dp. So I'm going to come back up here, give this a weight sum, give it a weight sum of 100, and then this ViewPager is going to occupy 90% of that total weight sum. So you can see the blue outline here is occupying 90% of the layout, and then below there's just that last little 10%, which is going to be where the tab layout lives. Get an ID of ViewPager. And then below the ViewPager, I'm going to add that tab layout. So there's the tab layout. Let's go match parent, wrap content, give this an ID of tab layout. And we're going to set a few more properties before we move on. We need tab background, which is going to be the tab selector. I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. So I'm sure you have questions about that, so just hang on. Going to give a tab gravity of center to center the tabs in the middle of the screen. Tab indicator height, which is going to be 0 dp. And then the tab max width, which is going to be 10 dp. That's going to bring the tabs into the center to only occupy 10 dp. So now what is this tab selector thing? I mentioned it near the beginning of the video a few minutes ago. So if I go into the drawable folder here and I open up the tab selector, what is this? Well, it's actually pointing to two different files. It's pointing to the tab indicator selected and tab indicator default. So the tab indicator selected is the selected state. So if a tab is selected, which is what happens when this blue dot is showing, or if a tab is unselected, which is what happens when this gray dot is showing. So you can see it says state selected is true, and then it wants to inflate the tab indicator selected drawable. If it's not selected, then it inflates the tab indicator default. So these are two other resources right here. Let's take a look at the selected one. The selected one is it's supposed to be a little blue dot, which I haven't added the color, so it's giving me an error here. If I look at the indicator default, it's giving me that gray color. So actually I should insert those colors before I move on. So I'm going to go into the colors file right here, and I'm going to insert all the colors that we need for this project. Once again, instead of me just writing them in, I suggest going to my blog post, going to the colors.xml section right here, and then just copy these colors. Go back to Android Studio, and then paste the colors in below. That's going to give you all the color resources that you need for this example. So we have a gray color, light gray, medium light gray, dark gray, and then we have a blue color. The blue color is the one that's used for the dot, and I believe it was the gray color, which is the one that's used for the gray dots. So now let's take another look at those indicator selected resources. So tab indicator selected has that little blue dot right there, that little blue circle, and the tab indicator default has that little gray circle. I know it's hard to see, but there's a tiny little gray circle there. So now if I go back to tab selector, this is pointing to those two different resources. So if it's selected, then we have the blue one. If it's not selected, then we have the gray one. Okay, so now that we have the layout for the fragment, I'm just going to close all of these, all the files that I have open. Now that we have the layout for the fragment, let's actually build the fragment class. So I'm going to right click on the main package directory, go to new Java class, and we'll create a fragment named ViewPager item fragment. It's going to extend by the fragment Android support v4 app class, which is the most recent fragment class. There was two options there. You can see if I delete this one and I go back to the imports, there's two options here. This one's deprecated, this one is not, so obviously use the one that's not deprecated. And the first thing I'll do is insert all the required override methods that I need for this class. So I pressed Control O if you didn't see what I did there, and now I'm going to select some of the methods. So I need the onCreate method, which is this one right here. I need the onCreateView method, and I think that's the only two that I need. So I'm going to insert those two. Now the widgets that I need is an image view. I guess I'll write a heading first. So widgets. The first one is an image view. Image view. The second one is going to be a text view. And I need two text views, one for the title and one for the price. And the only variable I need, so I'm putting a vars heading, the only variable I need is a hat object, because in each fragment there's going to be a different hat object. If we pull up the demo application, this is a fragment, this is a fragment, this is a fragment. Each fragment contains a different hat object. This one's a red hat, this one is a gray hat, this one's a camo hat. Now, before I move forward and work on these two methods, I need to create a public static method for creating a new fragment instance. This is the best practice way to create an instance of whatever fragment you're building, whatever fragments you're using. Notice the input I'm passing here to the getInstance method. It takes a hat object because each fragment is going to be hosting a different variation of a hat object. So I'm passing a different hat object through that constructor. Now the first thing I want to do is instantiate that new fragment. So ViewPager item fragment equals new ViewPager item fragment. Now if the hat object, passed through the constructor does not equal null, then we know we actually have a new hat. So bundle equals new bundle, and we want to pass that new hat through the bundle. So bundle dot put parseable, and I want to pass the hat object. So I'm passing a keyword of hat and passing the hat object. It's giving me a warning because I haven't implemented parseable on the object class. We'll talk about that in just a second. So fragment set arguments, and I want to pass that bundle. And then of course I want to return that fragment. So what I've done is I've taken the hat object that's passed through the constructor, I've instantiated a bundle object, I've attached that hat object to the bundle, and then I've attached the bundle to the fragment. So that way, when I instantiate a new fragment, that new hat object is going to be attached to it, and I get access to it. So now what is that parseable thing that I mentioned, and why is this giving me a warning? So if you create custom object classes and you want to attach them to a bundle, you need to make them parcelable. So if I go into my custom hat object, I need to go implements parcelable. And now I'm going to press Alt Enter, go to implement methods, click those methods, and scroll up to the top. You can see it's still giving me a warning. I'm going to click on here, Alt Enter again, add parcelable implementation, and that takes care of the warning. So what parcelable is it's a way to package objects. If you create a custom object class, like I have a custom hat class, and we want to attach that to a bundle, I need to tell Android Studio how to package that object. So all you need to do when you tell Android Studio how to package the object is you need to implement parcelable on the class. That way it's able to deal with it properly, and you can attach that object to a bundle just like I've done right here. Then, since we have a hat object attached to the bundle, I can go into the onCreate method, which is the first method that's fired when this fragment class is instantiated and inflated into view, and I can check for that hat object. So I can go if get arguments does not equal null, then we know we have something attached to the bundle. And in that case, I can set our global hat object. So mhat equals get arguments, and then get parcelable, not parcelable, but array, get parcelable, and I just reference the key for that object, which is hat. Notice the key right here is hat, and this key is the same as what I put up here. So that's retrieving that hat object from the bundle. Next is the onCreateView method. This method is fired when the view is created, so when the layout is inflated. So what I need to do here is write inflator.inflate, and I want to reference the layout that we created for the fragment, which is fragment ViewPager item, reference the container, and pass false. So that is our onCreateView method. And I know I said earlier that these are the three methods that we need, but I do actually need one more. So I'm pressing Control O, and I need the onViewCreated method. This is the method that's called last. So we have onCreate, then onCreateView, and then onViewCreated. And you can see it gives me a reference to that view object. And then I can use that view object to attach the IDs to these different widgets. So find view by ID dot image. I believe the ID was image. Then we have the title, which is view find view by ID r.id.title. And I have the price, which is view find view by ID r.id.price. So these are all the IDs of the views in the layout. So if I open up fragment ViewPager item, we have the image, we have the title, and we have the price. So I'm associating those widgets with their IDs right here so that I can then use them inside the fragment class. Now, the last step in this fragment is going to be building a method that sets the different properties to the widgets. So I'm going to go private void init is what I'm going to call it. And inside init, I'm going to check if our hat object is null, first of all. Then if it's not null, I can set all of the values to the widgets. So first I need a request options, so request options object, options equals new request options. This is for using glide. I'm going to set a placeholder, so a default image. I'm just going to set it to the IC launcher background. That's what's going to be displayed if for some reason glide is unable to load the image. So then glide.width, I want to reference the activity context. In a fragment, I can call getActivity to get access to the context. Then I want to set those default request options, which I specified above. Next is loading the resource, so hat.getImage, that's the resource. And then what do I want to load it into? I want to load it into the image view. So that's going to set the image using glide. So now I'm going to go up here, I'm going to call init, and I can finish setting the rest of the properties here. So the next is the title, so I'm calling set text on the title widget, then hat.get title to get that title. And the last thing I need to set is the price. Now I'm not going to be able to set the price yet because the big decimal object requires certain formatting. So if I go mhat.getPrice, that's not going to be, see, notice we can't actually set that. So what I need to do is I need to format this big decimal number so that it can be displayed in a text view. And to do that, I'm going to create a new class. So I'm going to right click on the main package directory, go to new package, and I'm going to create a utility package, so util. And inside util, I'm going to create a new Java class. I'm going to name it big decimal util. So this is going to be a custom class used to format the big decimal price objects. So private static string get value is what I'll call it. It's going to take a big decimal object as input, and I'm going to get a decimal format object. df equals new decimal format object. Now I'm going to specify the format pattern for the big decimal object. So I'm going to write number, comma, number, comma, number, dot, 0, 0. So that's going to format what the price should look like. Then return string.value of, and I want to do df dot format the value. Now, of course, you can use more numbers if you wanted to. These I just used this many digits, but you could do this forever for whatever amount of digits you thought that the price was going to be. I just have a simple application where I'm displaying hats, so there's no reason that I need more than this amount of digits. No one's going to buy a hat that's worth more than that money. So now I can come into our fragment class, and I'm going to cut that. I'm going to go big decimal util, which is the class I just made. Then I'm going to call get value, and I'm going to pass that price. So that's going to format our price accordingly. The next step is going to be setting up the ViewPager. So the ViewPager is essentially a object that holds holds fragments. In this case, it's going to be holding 6 different fragments. So it's a class that holds the different fragments. So what I'm going to do is go to the main package directory, go to, not new Kotlin class. I'm going to go to new Java class, and I'm going to call this my pager adapter. So this is a class that's going to be responsible for adapting the fragments to that ViewPager. So I'm going to extend by fragment state pager adapter. I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. You can see it's giving me a warning. I'm going to press Alt Enter, go to implement methods, and I'm going to insert those 2 required methods. And it's still giving me a warning, so I'm going to go up here again, Alt Enter, create constructor matching super, and there we go, the warning is taken away. I'm actually just going to finish writing this class, and then I'm going to talk about why I used fragment state pager adapter, because I could have used fragment pager adapter. That's also another option, but I'm going to use fragment state pager adapter. But like I said, I'm going to talk about the differences between those 2 classes in just a second here. So I need an array list that's going to hold fragment objects. So fragment, import that, and I'm going to call it mfragments, and fragments equals new array list, because remember, this is going to hold a list of fragments. So in get item, I want to do mfragments.get whatever item is selected, and then get count is mfragments.size. So that's it. It's a very simple class, not much to it. I need to actually add one more thing. So array list fragment, because we need a way to actually set the fragments that are going to be used in the list. So mfragments equals fragments. So when this class is instantiated using the constructor, I'm going to pass a list of all the fragments that I want to use, and then those fragments will get set right here. I actually don't need to set this to new because we are setting it right there. So now, why did I use the fragment state pager adapter instead of the fragment pager adapter? So there's 2 kind of options here. A fragment pager adapter is best used when there is a handful of typically more static fragments. So this is what the typical implementation of using tabs looks like. When you're using tabs in an application, typically you want to use a fragment pager adapter, not a fragment state pager adapter. So what that does is the fragments that are kept in the ViewPager are kept in memory. So they're typically not used for when you have a ton of fragments. That's why it's best for when you use tabs, because usually if you use tabs, there's only up to 5 tabs, so it's not a big deal to keep those in memory. I actually have a tutorial on setting up tabs. Let me just bring up a browser window here. If you go to my YouTube, and I think if you just type tab Android tutorial, mine's probably the one that comes up. Yeah, so this one right here. So in that tutorial, I use a fragment state pager adapter. No, a fragment pager adapter, not a fragment state pager adapter. So why am I using a fragment state pager adapter here? The fragment state pager adapter is better for if you have a large number of fragments, or if you don't know how many fragments there's going to be. Basically, when you're using it more like a list view, which is what we're doing here. If we look at the application, I could theoretically have 100 tabs here. I could have as many as I wanted. So because you don't know how many fragments I'm going to be adding to the view pager, that's basically when you want to use a fragment state pager adapter. All right, so we are nearing the end here. The last thing I need to do is actually set up main activity. So all we need here is 2 widgets. So widgets, and we need the view pager, so private view pager, my view pager. And the second one is going to be a tab layout. So tab layout, tab layout. Those are the only 2 widgets that we need. Oh, I actually don't think I added them to activity main, so maybe we need to do that first. Oh, I did add them. Okay, we're good. So we have the tab layout, and we have the view pager. So I'm going to attach those to their IDs. So my view pager equals find view by ID, r.id dot it's view pager, and then tab layout equals find view by ID, r.id dot tab layout. So those are the 2 views we need. I'm going to create a method named init. So create method init in main activity. It's going to be void. So what I need to do here is now reference that resource class that we created. So I'm creating a array list of fragments. These are all the fragments that are going to be added to that view pager. Now I'm going to create a list of hat objects. So hats equals hats.getHats. That's referencing the static class. Oh, whoops, it should be an array list of hat objects. An array of hat objects. I'm not sure. There we go. It's trying to give me the import. There we go. That gives me a list of hat objects. Now I want to loop through those hat objects. So hat in hats, and I want to add a new fragment. I want to instantiate a new fragment for each one of those hats. So equals ViewPager item fragment dot get instance. Remember, we're using that get instance method to instantiate the fragment, and then I want to go fragments dot add a new fragment to that list. And then at the end of the day, I want to set up our pager adapter. So pager adapter equals new my pager adapter, get support fragment manager, and I'm passing the list of fragments. I can close this to give me some more room, because remember that constructor takes, let's look at the constructor. It takes the fragment manager, and it also takes a list of fragments. So that's what I'm passing to the constructor right there. Now I want to do my pager adapter dot set adapter to that pager adapter, and I want to do tab layout, and I want to set up that view pager with the tab layout. So my pager adapter or my view pager, and then I want to do auto refresh to true. So that should be it. I'm pretty sure that's all we need to do. At this point, I can run it, and we can take a look to see if it's working. There we go. It's almost perfect. The only thing is the background color. So if you notice, I can swipe through these different variations. It's showing the title, it's showing the price, it's showing the image. So everything should be working as we expect. The only thing is that background color, like I said, which is fortunately a very easy fix. So if I go into activity main, all I would need to do here is set a background to a white color, and that would resolve that problem. So I'm going to run the app again. So now you can see the view is working the way it should be. Everything's white, everything's swipeable. The selector is working at the bottom. Everything is working as we expect. I know this video was a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure that I included kind of every step along the way so that you know exactly how to do this, how to implement this in your own projects. And hopefully I've done that and I've shed some light on how to set this all up. If you like the way I teach, make sure to head over to codingwithmitch.com. I have a number of different courses on my website that you can check out. If you're a beginner, this SQLite for Beginners 2019 is going to be really, really great for you. I take you through every step of the way from building a note-keeping application. Actually, I can show you the demo. If we click right here and we go to the course demo, it's a note-keeping application, and I show you how to use the room persistence library, which is SQLite. It's a really great project for beginners, so definitely check that out. If you want to watch the course, you're going to need to register, which is fortunately very easy. I'll just show you how to do that. You just go to register. It's free, so register for that, and you can watch any of the free courses on my website. So yeah, check those out. I have a number of paid courses too, like building an audio streaming application. This is going to be similar to Spotify, if you know what that looks like. Google Maps and Google Directions, the old SQLite course, custom camera. I'm working on a REST API course right now, which is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So definitely check out my blog. If you don't want to pay for anything, that's cool too. Just register, and there's a bunch of free stuff. Yeah, it's pretty much all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.